Most people think artists can't make money, and they're stuck between their hobby and a job that pays for their rent. But what if you can have both? Having something you love that also pays for your life. I have a polymer clay charm store where I make $176,000 a year, working less than a few hours per week. And I'm going to show you the 5 steps I use to take my hobby into a 6-figure per year online store, including the one decision that 15x'd my sales. This isn't going to be about grinding on social media 24/7 or having some sort of magical artistic talent, because I don't think I have any, but I'm going to show you that by focusing on just a handful of key strategies, any artist can build a thriving business, even if you're just getting started. If you've been on social media at all, it will have you believe that to build a successful creative business, you need to be posting content every single day and building some massive following. But I found that to be completely exhausting and pretty ineffective. I struggled for years making different handmade items, everything from hand-bound journals to beaded jewelry to random clay creations, and I had almost nothing to show for it in sales financially. But how did I go from just a mere polymer clay hobbyist to having a thriving business selling clay charms? The answer wasn't working harder, it was getting more strategic. So it all started back in 2006 when I first discovered polymer clay. In the beginning, I was making everything under the sun, video game objects, animals, stars, really anything that inspired me in the moment. And I would share my creations on online message boards and forums, and occasionally someone would buy something. But sales were very sporadic at best. So the turning point came when I started focusing on miniature food charms specifically. And I didn't realize it at the time, but there is a whole community of women and girls who just absolutely adore tiny food. Like, my toy of choice when I was growing up was fake food and playing pretend cooking. My neighbor had a Barbie supermarket set with all the tiny fake food products, and it was the cutest thing I had ever seen, and I wanted it so badly. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had accidentally stumbled upon my niche. So the first lesson to building a successful creative business is finding your unique niche. That sweet spot only you can fill, where you're like the big fish in a small pond. Look for these 3 elements, and ideally you can create a product that meets all of these 3 elements. Something you genuinely enjoy making, something with a unique twist that stands out, and something people actually want to buy. The biggest mistake I see creative people make is trying to sell everything they know how to make or that their heart pulls them to, like for me when I started out. But being known for one specific thing makes getting sales later on so much easier. So pay attention to which products generate the most excitement and sales for you, even if they're not what you expected. So here's also a tip. My bestsellers often started as custom orders that I then added to my regular collection. If you've been selling your handmade items, but you're still at this hobby level, you're probably thinking, if I lower my prices, I'll get more sales. I mean, it sounds logical, right? Lower prices, more people buying. But what if I told you that when I tested pricing the exact same necklace at $28 versus $49.99, that the higher priced version actually sold more pieces and made me more money? Most artists dramatically undercharge for their work, creating a situation where they are working constantly but still not making enough to live on. So how do you fix that? When I first started selling polymer clay jewelry, I priced them around $10 to $15 per piece because I thought that was the limit to what people would pay for just clay. Customers would often comment that my prices were too high for what it was. They thought the charms would break easily or they weren't worth more than a few dollars. So I had 2 options: lower my prices to meet their expectations or change the perception of my product's value. I couldn't lower the prices because then I couldn't even cover my material costs. So I decided to try the second approach. I switched from using Sculpey 3 clay, which is softer and more brittle, so it breaks more easily, to Primo clay, different brand, which is harder to work with for me, but so much more durable. I got custom manufactured chains with beautiful, sturdy clasps that hardly broke. I completely rebranded with sophisticated packaging that looked more like a French patisserie than like a DIY homemade kids project. When I made these changes and I raised my prices, something incredible happened. Not only did sales not drop, they actually increased. The higher price point attracted customers who valued quality and uniqueness over just the cheapest option. So here's what I've learned about pricing creative work. Your prices send a message about your product's value. Low prices can actually signal low quality. I mean, like, how many times has that happened to you, right? I have definitely looked at things that were too cheap and thought something's wrong with that product. Your prices attract different types of people. Think about the people who shop at dollar stores versus people who shop at Prada. You need to also visually communicate the value of your work through professional branding, through your website, your product photos. And don't try to compete with mass-produced items on price because you will never win. Instead, focus on creating and communicating value that justifies the prices you need to sell your work for to be profitable, which means making more than just covering costs, but to also pay you a healthy income that then pays for your life. Now, if you're serious about making a full-time income from your creative business, here is a statistic that changed everything for me. I have made $119,000 in sales on Etsy since I started my shop, but I have made $1.7 million from my own Shopify website. That is 15 times more revenue from my own website compared to Etsy. But here's the wild thing. Most artists put all their eggs in the Etsy basket and then they wonder why they're stuck on this sales roller coaster. So how do you break free from depending solely on Etsy for your living and build a real business asset instead that lasts for years and years? When I started selling online, Etsy was the obvious choice, right? As it is for a lot of people today. It is easy to set up with, and it has the built-in traffic of people already shopping there, right? But I quickly saw a lot of limitations. My sales would fluctuate so much based on Etsy's algorithm changes. I was competing directly with thousands of other sellers. Most of them were charging far less than me. And I had no control over the customer experience or ability to build my own brand. It was like I was investing all of this time and energy into a rental property, right? Like you're building equity for someone else while having zero stability myself. The real game changer was launching my own website. Initially, of course, it was intimidating. I worried about the technical side of things and whether anyone would find my site without that built-in traffic that came with Etsy. But I learned that having my own site actually gave me complete control, or at least more control, over my branding, over the customer experience, and most importantly, direct access to my customers for marketing. When I made a sale, I could follow up with email marketing, send them special offers to get them to buy again, build longer-term relationships with them, which all of that means more repeat sales later on. I mean, I've had customers who have shopped with me for 10 plus years, which I find so incredible. So while it definitely took me more effort up front, over time, this approach created far more stability and growth than Etsy ever could for me. And the good news is for you that creating your own website professionally is so easy now and more affordable than I have ever seen it. So you have no excuse. I'm going to show you how to set up a complete online store in less than 30 minutes using Hostinger, who is also sponsoring today's video. Let me walk you through exactly how to do this. First, go to the Hostinger link through the link in the description. For creative online stores, I recommend using the business plan because it has the AI tools that make creating your site super duper easy and also includes a ton of features you need to sell your products with. You can also use my code Creative Hive for a special discount that makes this less than the cost of a cup of fancy coffee every month. When you choose your domain, which is like, www.tinyhandsonline.com, Hostinger actually offers a free .store domain with your plan. So if you're really strapped for cash, but you want to get your shop up ASAP, then use the .store domain for now. Otherwise, you'd have to pay $10 to $15 per year to get a .com domain name, which is my preference, but I understand if you're budget conscious. And another frustration with .com domain names is all the good names are already taken, and you probably don't have to worry about that so much with a .store domain name. Plus, did I already mention it's free? Now, this is where Hostinger really shines for online store owners. Their AI website builder creates a professional looking store in literal minutes, even if you have zero design skills. So I'll enter Tiny Hands and describe my business here, and you can watch how the AI just takes that description and how quickly it creates a professional looking website just based on what I wrote here. This would have taken me weeks when I was starting out, and even knowing what I know now, building a website on Shopify will take me 2-3 days If I'm fast, maybe 1 or 2 weeks if I'm taking my time. And this you can do in like 20 minutes. There's also the drag and drop editor, which is really cool. You can use this to customize your website even more, and it's really flexible while still giving you good guardrails so you don't accidentally break your site or make it look unprofessional. And one tool I especially love is the AI writer. If you struggle with writing product descriptions, and I definitely do, like I have paid people money to do this for me, this is going to be such a huge help for you. Just type in basic details about your product and it creates these engaging, persuasive descriptions to help sell your work. So in just a few minutes, you can create a professional online store that's ready to start selling. Having your own website isn't just about looking professional though. It is an investment into building a business asset you control completely, and no one can take that away from you, which you cannot say that for Etsy because we've heard so many times of Etsy shops closing down for no reason. Now, most creative business owners think social media is the only way to promote their products. They spend hours creating content, chasing followers, and posting 24/7 every single day, but then they're barely getting any sales to show for it. After years of struggling to build my own following, and even when it got big enough, my followers rarely saw my posts and my engagement is terrible. I created content consistently and I watched my follower count slowly tick up. But here was the problem. Like, having 10,000 followers did not translate to meaningful sales. The return in sales I was getting was not proportionate to the effort I was putting in. It felt like I was constantly feeding this hungry monster that demanded more and more content but gave so little in return. Then I found a completely different approach, and that was with using media outreach. So instead of trying to build my own audience from scratch, I thought, what if I borrowed other people's audiences that they already took the time to build up? So I created a simple list of websites, blogs, and magazines where my ideal customers might be reading or hanging out at. And here's the thing, I didn't just target other jewelry media or publications just because I also sell jewelry. I thought a little bit more outside the box with like food blogs, since my jewelry looks like food. I looked at gift guides, lifestyle publications, even camping and outdoorsy magazines for my s'mores necklace. And then I sent simple, straightforward email pitches that are less than like 100 words each, explaining why my jewelry is a good fit for their readers. I wasn't begging. There was no like, please feature me. It was just me having confidence in the value of my products and how cool they are and why they would be interesting to their readers. And the results were amazing. One feature in a popular blog brought in more sales in a single day than I had made the entire previous month on social media. A mention in a magazine would bring in orders for over a year because people were still reading that past magazine issue, or, they keep them in the doctor's office, right? And that first month that I was featured in the magazine, I would get like $20,000 in sales. Never ever could that happen for me on social media. So here is how you can do this for yourself. First, research where your ideal customers already spend their time online. Blogs, websites, YouTube channels, podcasts, even print magazines, so it doesn't have to just be online. And you want to think outside the box here. Don't just pitch to the obvious places in your niche. Like if you sell t-shirts, don't just go reach out to fashion influencers. Then create a simple email pitch that talks about why their audience would love your products, not why you need the feature, which is a common mistake I see. And then you also want to follow up professionally if you don't hear back. When you get featured, you can then use that as social proof on your website or help you get more features like that. The magic in this approach is that each feature functions as a third-party endorsement, which builds trust so much more effectively than your own marketing ever could. Just imagine, right? If I owned a restaurant and I'm telling people like, come to my restaurant, my food's really tasty, people are going to take that with a grain of salt, right? But if you are a customer of that restaurant and you're like, oh my gosh, that new Italian restaurant, the meatballs are so good, and you're telling your friend, they're much more likely to trust you because you're a third party that is unbiased or less biased. And unlike social media where posts disappear in hours, media features continue working for you for months and even years, creating this compounding effect that I call the domino effect as you get more placements. And if you want more specific information around how to do this, I run a free workshop where I go much more in depth about media outreach. The link to join is in the description below. Now, many store owners hit a ceiling when they're making a decent income but working around the clock. They become trapped in their own business because they can't scale, because everything depends on them, right? But if you want to get to 6 figures selling handmade items, you likely can't be the only person making every single order. I was in this exact position. So how could I keep growing without becoming a slave to my business? The system I created to solve this completely transformed my business and my life. When I got to 6-figure sales in my business, I was making charms all the time. My hands would cramp up, my back and my neck would get so sore, and then I would get so cranky, and I had no time for growing my business beyond what it was already doing, and didn't even have time for myself. During the busy seasons, this would also eat into my personal life. So I had 2 options. I could cap my growth at what I could personally make on my own, or find a way to scale beyond my own 2 hands. The idea of letting someone else make my charms though was really scary. I was afraid the quality would go down and customers would complain. I wasn't even sure I could teach someone else how to make my charms. But I started small, and it took me a while to build the team I have now, which is 5 production assistants who help me make all of my jewelry. People would come and go. It wasn't a good fit for a lot of them, but over time, I was able to find the right people who worked well. My oldest person has been with me for more than 10 years now, which is so cool. And today my team makes like almost all the products that I sell in my shop, like 90 to 95% of them, while I can focus with more time to actually steer the business ship. This change allowed me to work fewer than 5 hours a week on this business, while it generates about like $160,000 to $180,000 every single year for me. So if you want to scale beyond your own capacity, here's what I learned. Number 1, you want to document your processes before you hire because it takes time. So create detailed videos or guides showing exactly how to create your products. You want to start small with 1 assistant and teach them the simplest product design you can start with. And then you want to give clear, specific feedback and be patient with the learning curve. This is where I see most people get weak and they get impatient and they think, oh, it doesn't work, because they get frustrated that their new assistant isn't making their work at the same level that you are. You need to want them to succeed, so do your best to invest your time here and be patient. Use quality checks to maintain your standards and keep customers happy, and then you can gradually expand on your team's responsibilities as they prove themselves. This approach works for virtually any creative business, right? And the real freedom comes when you transition from being a maker who happens to have a business to being a business owner who happens to make things. The moment that truly changed everything for me was when I stopped treating my creative business like a hobby and started treating it like a real business, with a professional website, getting strategic with my marketing, getting comfortable with my numbers, creating systems that could scale beyond just me. If you're ready to take your creative business to the next level, head to the Hostinger website through my link in the description and use the code CreativeHive when you check out for a special discount. The business plan gives you everything you need to start selling right away.